but his eyes are filled with hope. Yes, many of his friends are gone, but that has not stopped him from sharing the gospel. And John still loves to tell about those days when he traveled with Christ. The miracles that John relates run the gamut from a wedding oversight to a violent execution, from empty bellies to empty dreams, from abandoned hopes to buried friends. The stories fill us with wonder, but as we listen to them, we need to be careful to see them as John intended, not as entries in a history book, but as samples from God's playbook. John wrote down these miracles not to impress us, but to urge us to believe in the presence of Christ. As he stated, these stories are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. When we believe in Jesus, we have life, abundant, robust, and resilient life. We find strength beyond our strength. We accomplish tasks beyond our capacity. We see solutions beyond our wisdom. And we are never, ever alone. For as Jesus has promised, I'm with you always, to the end of the age. These words meant everything to John. I imagine he carried them with him throughout his days as he saw his friends and co-workers departing this world one by one. It's a message he and his congregation needed to hear frequently. You are never alone. And don't we need to know the same? When life gets dark and stormy, when we're facing an onslaught of challenges, we need to know that God is with us in those big crises of life. But beyond this, we need to trust that he's with us in the small things of life. Which brings us to the first miracle that John relates. The setting was a wedding in Cana, located 4 miles northeast of Jesus' hometown of Nazareth. John states, on the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Boy, the people in first century Palestine sure knew how to throw a party. None of this wedding and reception in one evening. John tells us that Jesus and his band arrived on the third day. Weddings lasted as long as 7 days, and the food and the wine were expected to last just as long. So we can understand the stress in Mary's voice when she came to Jesus and said, "They have no more wine." Now, you got to admit, as far as miracles go, this is setting the bar pretty low. Yes, in that culture, it would have caused extreme embarrassment for the host to run short of wine. The memory of the happy couple would be marred by the event. The host family would carry a stigma of shame. The families invited to the wedding would be angry, to say the least, at this lack of concern for them as guests. In that day, hospitality was reciprocated. If you threw a party and went to great expense for your guests, they expected you to do the same. Yet, this was far from a life and death struggle. Of all the needs of the people on the planet, bone-dry wine vats at a wedding don't even tip the scale. So why would John start things off with a sign that seems so ordinary? It's a good question. Perhaps even one that John's listeners asked. I can picture him smiling as he recounted Mary's words, "They have no more wine." I think this is actually the point, the ordinariness of it all. You know, Paul wrote, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." In everything, not just the big things, let your requests be made known to God. You know, Mary certainly modeled this. She didn't worry that the size of her request was too small to be answered. She simply connected the problem with the provider. The result was miraculous provision and restoration of what had been lost. But before that restoration took place, there is an interesting moment that deserves some attention. John tells us Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." Now, while scholars debate exactly how